All right, so diving in today, we're going to do it with, I think, a company you guys have all been waiting for, and that is RedFox Labs. And it's going to be really a deep dive into not only the kind of the concept of what they're trying to build at RedFox, but also a general idea of where the metaverse may be going, because there may be some nuggets in here that will really help you guys out there as you get into these projects. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back to TechPath. Joining me today is Mr. Ben Fairbank, CEO and founder of RedFox Labs. Great to have you.
Thank you very much for having me. Great to be here.
Excellent. Ben, so you are in Vietnam, an interesting startup spot for a company like yours. Talk to me about why you guys chose to go that direction. What was kind of the strategy there? Because I think you mentioned some things in the pre-show that I found was interesting in understanding how a
Yeah.
lot of companies are looking at startups.
So we looked at a lot of things. We're data guys. I've had a long experience in turnarounds and working in big Fortune 500s, and we looked at a couple of things. But the two factors that swayed us, I guess, was the lack of competition here. Not
Right.
many people were taking that risk, and the GDP had grown in line with China 7 years in a row. But the most important thing was that they kept being ranked, Vietnam, the third best country in the world for technology. They've got 100,000 engineers come through university every year. So we were smack bang in the middle of a technical pool of talent that we thought this would be smart for us to get positioned, get known as a player in the space here, and then we can work with the RMIT and the universities to really take the best students to come in and help us build.
Yeah. And I think going that strategy route is very key because there's so many companies right now, as you mentioned, if you look at what's happening in Malaysia or Singapore, and really the Pacific Rim in general, we've seen just this influx of demand for developers, and developers being
Mm,
kind of the lifeblood of any project out there, whether you're in Europe, Southeast Asia, off into the US here, even with some of the projects that we're dealing with. That's the
yep,
biggest, it's the biggest challenge everybody's facing. Of course, you guys are setting in what could be a tulip garden of potential opportunity there.
absolutely,
I like it. I like it.
absolutely.
So
I
smooth
mean, I think the
move.
government here. Yeah, I think so. The government here is not really keen on allowing anyone to replace their local currency. So anything I can buy with the dong, I'm not allowed to use anything else with anything. But
Interesting.
they missed out on the dot-com boom, and they are very, very keen to make amends, and they're very
Yeah.
keen to back the technology of blockchain. So that's another thing that's an added advantage for us as well, because they're prepared to get behind us. And I think that because we're agnostic and we're not stuck to just the government feels comfortable working with us because of the fact that it doesn't matter what chain ends up being the most successful, they haven't backed the wrong one. And I think that's the type of strategy that they're looking at, and that they tell us openly that that's the way they go about it. So they've been very, very supportive of us.
Ben, when you look at you guys building a company in the blockchain space, obviously you looked at a lot of different countries in general of trying to establish where your
Yep.
startup would be and kind of that evolution. What are your thoughts, kind of away from the metaverse and gaming side, but more in the blockchain side? What are your
Mm.
thoughts on how the rest of the planet is essentially dealing with blockchain technology? We have some countries who are embracing it completely.
Hmm.
We've got some
Hmm.
countries now. I mean, I just saw down here in El Salvador, we now have a Bitcoin city coming up. We've got some
Yep.
countries that have really made it easier for companies to do startups, develop kind of the next evolution. And you just kind of hit it on the head in the sense of a lot of countries missed the dot bomb and the dot com era.
Mm.
Now we've got what
Mm.
is Web 3.0, which is
Yep.
potentially reinventing the internet really right underneath our feet. Do you feel that Asia is going to become the new, pretty much the new titan in terms of development of this particular architecture?
Has to be because of the
Yeah.
population. And look at play to earn gaming, look at the average income here. All of these models are suited for this particular region. And I think this region will end up leading the way as far as that's concerned. But to go back to your previous point about how different countries adopt it differently, have a global approach in our products and services, we have to basically say we can't have an iteration for every single country. So we've had to set ourselves up very carefully to be like a Grab or an Uber model,
Right.
where we're basically saying that we're the platform that introduces the buyers to the sellers. And we're actually very much of the fact that those buyers and sellers would have to do their own due diligence as far as what they can and can't do. and then our applications can be applied in any country. So that was a conclusion we came to after 2 years of pretty heavy legal studies and trying to get our head around which way is going to work the best. But ultimately, every single country not only has to change their approaches very quickly, and as you know, technology moves much faster than legislation.
Yeah, that's a challenge. I mean, I grew up in running developers actually in Asia for Microsoft, and one of the things back in that day was very same and similar scenarios that we're dealing with today in blockchain. Is the tech is advancing much faster than what many of the lawmakers and even in general just politicians are trying to keep up with what's really happening. The problem with this one, I shouldn't say a problem, but the challenge that it represents is it's tied directly to the monetary system. So that immediately changes the whole dynamic. Once it was different when you were creating websites and e-commerce wasn't ready yet. Now you're recreating money and the process of earning money, and that gets a little bit more sensitive for most countries. So
not only countries, I think that, you know, people say that talent is the biggest problem that faces, especially a company like ours. But money's also a big problem, and the reason that is because if you give people a bit of skin in the game, or you incentivize people in the blockchain space, and you go through a bull run, the issue is trying to keep people's attention, keep people's focus. People can make life-changing money. So it's not only about finding the right people, it's about working out systems on how to retain them. Because if you're as successful as you set out to be, you're going to have that problem as a company. There's no doubt. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes.
Yeah, I think you know, Silicon Valley kind of run through that, but I don't know that they really experienced what we're already starting to see in the blockchain side. Because that, you're right, some of the projects that we follow here on this channel, we're starting to see some projects that are actually lagging behind that had early leads, mainly and only because of the developer acquisition and retention problem that is in the space right now. So it's going to be a big one. We could talk for days on that. Let's get into RedFox Labs and what you guys are doing. Let's go into the roadmap first, just to understand kind of where you guys are in the roadmap. What's it going to look like going forward?
Yeah, so the play-to-earn game, which has been a labor of love, we built the first iteration of the play-to-earn game for mobile, 100% on-chain, and it was the first proper on-chain 100% mobile game. It was a proof of concept. That doesn't scale as easily as you would like and as readily as you would like to do what we want to do in the free-to-earn, play-to-earn category and space. So the play-to-earn has been in closed beta for the last couple of months, and we've been working with YGG, Yield Good Games, to bring on their communities to help us test that out. And those guys are generally waiting for Axie scholarships. So that's been a really good feeder for them, and also an intro to us. And now on the 30th, which is a week away, we're going for our full open beta. So we're unleashing, we're doing registrations now through Play Store and App Store. And on the 30th, we will kick off our full play-to-earn mechanics for our free-to-earn game.
So the closed beta game testing, you guys started back in December of 2020. And you're saying that now is launching just this next week?
Yeah, because the thing is that when we went back for closed beta originally, that was on the on-chain mobile 100%, and they had no game mechanics for play to earn. It was just literally to see whether the engine worked and to make sure it worked. And then we've gone through we brought in a gaming studio, we built, and then we've gone through a reskin. We've been pretty clever, I think, with our play to earn mechanics, because none of the free to earn games have really survived without wrecking their economy. And we've got to be extra careful because we're not just a game. We've got a token that spans across the whole ecosystem and is continually shelling out, putting continual sell pressure on you, destroy your whole economy for your ecosystem. So we had to really go back to the drawing board and say, hang on, let's plan to be successful. And that's not something that blockchain companies are very good at in general. They don't really seem to plan for success, a lot of them. So we didn't want to be a casualty, and we went back to the drawing board and said, let's get this right. Let's make sure it can scale, and we're finally ready to unleash that.
So talk to me about the staking window you guys rolled out, kind of where that ended up resulting in. How did that roll out for you? I mean, this was obviously done in October, but kind of talk, because this was a strategy I think some projects are really taking, of understanding how to roll out programs like this, and especially in the game side of things. How did this work out for you guys?
Yeah, it's worked out really well. I mean, both times I think that we probably had about I think when we first started it originally back in the day was about 100,000, and by the time it unlocked after 90 days, it was well over 1 million. So
Wow.
we were able to boast that it was $1 million staking pool, and then the same things happened again this time. I think when we started this pool, it was about 140 or 150,000, and it's just ticked over 1.2 million. So they're 90-day staking windows, and they've been very popular, and they were designed to work in conjunction with the game. So when that comes out, there's no need for us to think. And then we've also got a couple of other elements like a mint lab, where basically we started with Bored Apes, and they can come in and mint 5 KOGs, so game pieces in our game each month. They can sell those on the market or use them as whitelist entries into upcoming PFP projects. But most importantly, we're offering a route straight into games for these NFT projects on Ethereum that are unable to really build deployable games on Ethereum because of gas costs. We're saying, don't worry about building that anymore. We can provide a straight pipeline to revenue for your NFT holders and straight to in-game. So that's very important that we're bringing in that side, because if we've got free-to-earn players, we need to have people that are coming in and fueling the economy from the other side. So that was we've just started rolling that out now.
Yeah. What has been the, I guess, the scenario of the number of projects that, one, you're working with? What do you see in terms of pipeline for that? Because obviously that's going to be something that we'll see as you expand the game profiles and the development projects. Will you see more and more NFTs kind of partnering or reaching out to you guys to partner? What's that looking like right now?
I think we've hardly done any advertising on it, and we've already got 37 projects lined up. So I think this is it's not going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem on how we can accommodate the parameters for who we accept and who we don't accept, because we want to make this system eventually, once we've got enough players on the other side, we can just open it up and make it a tool that people can connect to and connect their projects to. But in the beginning, we have to be very careful and handpick, because we need to make sure that there's enough buy demand for the mints that are coming out, and we need to make sure that ecosystem and that model is sustainable. So that will come to fruition once the game is in full swing. So at this particular point in time, we've done just Bored Apes, and we're about to announce the next project now.
So talk to me about the graphics, because you guys are one of the companies, I think, that has just really unleashed in terms of tier one graphics. You see a handful of companies that don't necessarily have that kind of presence when they roll out. You guys were able to do this very early on. What was the strategy that you were able to build that type of graphic array, and is that something that is sustainable in terms of new projects?
Oh, 100%. Well, we deploy a DBot model across the whole group, and we basically design, we build, come up with we get it to the operational standpoint, and then we look for a product market fit. And then what we do is we say, right, everything that we start up is based on a 9-point IP funnel system. It's not what we want to build, it's what data tells us will work.
Right.
And we build in the fastest 4 sectors of the internet economy only. We've got parameters like, for example, there has to be a unicorn company that's displaying the same type of model that we can enhance or use or do better. And we have to be able to show that blockchain adds value, makes it faster to cheap. We have to be able to find talent. We have to have either be third to fifth to market. We don't necessarily want to be first. Or if there's 2 players that dominate more than 80%, can we be an attacker brand? So what we do is, once we've got the product market fit, which we did for KOGs, is we go out and we build an internal team, and we recruit the absolute best that we can find. So we recruited heavyweight people from the industry, from the gaming space, and built a gaming division, launched it as our gaming company. And so now we've got an in-house team. So that team will be able to continue to do at this level on an ongoing basis, but they'll also put out SDKs and allow for other game people trying to monetize existing games to be able to click into our ecosystem and to click into KOGs, the interoperable game pieces that we put out.
Yeah, I like that approach, especially one thing you mentioned that I'm not sure a lot of gaming companies, or in general metaverse companies, are truly doing, and that is really drilling down from the data side of the user base and also the industry itself. Because once you understand, because many people, they'll go out and build something without really knowing whether or not the project's going to have some sort of life. I think taking it from that angle first, really trying to kind of build backwards, and then going into developing a team around that, and kind of encompassing the team to kind of match the market fit. That's brilliant. It's definitely something I think is going to set you guys apart. Talk to me about, all right, so gaming models, amazing. The graphics, you guys have done just a stellar job with that. The strategy overall, big time in place. Talk to me about the growth and how the revenue opportunities you see kind of coming into RedFox Labs overall. I see you guys have a lot of different potential opportunities there. Kind of point to us where you see the biggest ones.
Yeah, so we think the biggest one's going to be e-commerce streaming. If you're not familiar with it, in China in 2019 alone, it was a $69 billion industry, and a lot of North American, European countries don't even really fully see it yet. But it's where basically a famous influencer or a person with an audience basically stands in front of a mobile phone or a computer and shows various products, like, for example, clothing, and you can actually interact with these people live. And if you have a look at like Hearts Day, which is a big day in Asia, in China, the top two influencers in e-commerce streaming in one session on Hearts Day do more than 10 Macy's stores do in a whole year combined. So this is a serious business and a serious play, and it's going to be massive in the rest of Southeast Asia. That's a big ticket item for us. But effectively, the most interesting thing about what we do is we would be, as a venture builder, stuck in a perpetual raise cycle. It's just how it is. So what we did was we actually stated that all the products and services that we develop have to be able to click into one thing, and we just determined early that metaverses would be a thing, and that would be a virtual space that we would click into. And the reason we did that is if we click into that, the possibilities that you're talking about become endless, because our products have a much stronger chance, and our companies have a much stronger chance of survival because they're plugging into a ready-made audience. We don't have to build from scratch. We escape the perpetual raise model, and most importantly, we've never taken 1 cent in equity funding. I think we're one of the very few companies that doesn't have someone leaning over us telling us what we have to do all the time. Otherwise, we wouldn't be allowed to build multiple things at once. As you would know, you're always told to focus on one thing and do it very well. And what we decided was blockchain's very early in the technology space, and they're going to blow up simultaneously. And you have to build the tools, and you have to build fast, and you have to connect those, and you just have to be smart about it. Use data to guide you. And then what will happen is once you've got those click together tools, the fact is you can then plug into B2B type models where they've already got established audience bases, and we don't have to go around and knock on people's doors and offer them $4 to onboard into our system. So we spent years developing the model before we actually went out and started doing anything about it.
I like that approach because I think I mean, we get a chance to talk to game companies, metaverse companies in general, kind of the blockchain revolution that is occurring especially around play to earn, and eventually what you're talking about is e-commerce inside the metaverse, which is really, I think, obviously we are so early on this. The companies that really kind of start to blueprint this they're going to be the companies that absolutely become the Facebooks and the Twitters of the world in Web 3.0. Ben, when you look at e-commerce, obviously a huge market there, the play-to-earn ecosystem, do you see brands coming into the space full tilt early, or do you think the big brands will kind of stand back and wait a minute before they start to really make big plays into the metaverse?
So it's a very good question. Brands don't bring hype, they follow hype. They go to where the hype is, hence the Visas buying CryptoPunks and all the rest of it. So what's going to happen very clearly, and I keep warning businesses about this, is we're dealing with legacy companies coming into the space, and they're saying, you need to hold out, you need to do everything for us. We don't understand this space, and then you've got to pay us to be able to do that with us, and then we might give you a little bit of enough to sort of keep you out of trouble sort of thing. What they don't realize is that the next big companies, your Facebooks, Amazons, and Googles, are going to be born from space. And you're going to see, like, let's take metaverse fashion, for example, like Artifact. These types of companies are going to start conceptually in the metaverse spaces, then create real life apparel and clothing, and they are going to be the trendsetters. And what's going to happen is the legacy companies are going to be rushing to try and fit into this model if they run too late. I know it's very early stages, but a lot of them are still very resistant to blockchain. They're apprehensive. But what they're not understanding is that there's a big movement happening, and there's going to be a few of those companies that are caught out in the cold. So I firmly believe that they're going to come in more out of necessity and adoption. And you'll see the smart players, there's a lot of companies that have been around for 10, 15 years and no one's really heard much about them, but they were big names back in the day. They're the ones who have come first headlong into the blockchain space, and they're trying to recreate being relevant again, which you have to take your hat off to them. But some of the big main players now are very resistant.
I think this is, you just hit on something we've talked about here on several shows. We had the tech dev on from Polygon on their NFT studios. He and I got into a big conversation around this very issue, and that is that would it be the major brands that would eventually stride into the metaverse and kind of create the new ecosystem of how brands might look, or would it be the startups that are more native to what's happening in that space? And he was on the same frame as you, and that is that there's going to be a large percentage of companies that are going to come from this new era of all things metaverse, all things, blockchain gaming, and only the few and only the bold will be of traditional brands will be able to kind of make that leap. And like you said, kind of follow in on a kind of a Johnny-come-lately situation, which could be an interesting aspect, because this could really roll up a lot of opportunity for a lot of new startups in the space. Do you see this similar to, say, Silicon Valley in the late 90s, early 2000s? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's different, and I wish I had capitalized more on that period, but I can tell you that the difference is tokenization and the monetary models that blockchain come up means that you don't necessarily have to do equity raises. When you don't have to do equity raises, you get to decide. You've got much more control over what you do. You can take more bold chances. And generally speaking, these types of runs that we're going through, generally speaking, you're going to have a company that doesn't have huge amount of equity investors in control and say in how a company operates. And generally speaking, they're going to be better funded. So you've got better funded companies with their fingers on the pulse on the technology, able to take calculated risks and able to take a bold risks, and have better funding than the traditional companies with far less wiggle room. And that's very, very potent. And I think he's 100% correct. And I think that is the assumption that data would say that is it's not a maybe, it's a definite.
Yeah. We've followed all of the big, whether you look at Sand Hill Road and the VCs in Silicon Valley and kind of what that evolution has looked like over the past, 5 years, much less. We talk to a lot of VCs here on the show. I talk to a lot of them in some of the groups that I hang with. And one thing that is clear with them right now, and whether you look at something like an Arrington Capital with what he's done with Luna and kind of just the whole Anchor protocols, all those different things, Mirror Protocol, et cetera, just so many different projects that the VCs are running into right now. Do you feel like they've kind of pinned their ears back and maybe aren't doing their due diligence well enough? Because I see some investments from what has been really good VCs into really crappy projects right now. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, to probably get in trouble for my thoughts on that sometimes. But ultimately speaking, I think if a company's structured to do well and put themselves in a position to be very successful, they sometimes aren't quite as appealing to VCs. And the thing is, for example, take a company like ours as a venture builder style of model, and you've got a parent company and then your companies that are underneath there. Where do you as a VC do you invest? So you invest in the venture level. No, you want to invest in the top level. But if you invest in the top level, you always stand the risk to be diluted at the venture levels. So they want to have very tight controls, and it's just like going back into the days of tokens. Like you think, why isn't RedFox listed on a tier 1 or whatever? We pushed very hard to make sure that 70-80% of our tokens are out in the market so that people can't get dumped on. But then you're in a situation where it's much harder to manipulate price to give it a pump when it goes onto a big exchange, and therefore that an exchange needs to show that when they list something it goes 4 or 5x, and it's much harder to do that. So the thing is that it's the same with investing. They need to make sure that there's a level of control, a level of comfort, and that they can dictate the type of return. So I think that the VCs, personally speaking, and from what I see, because I'm connected to a lot as well, is that they are rushing headlong into projects that have those strict parameters of we could potentially get a much quicker return, and their life cycles and their investment cycles have reduced hugely since they've started investing in blockchain.
Yeah, Yeah, for sure. I think this is it's a new era in terms of what we'll see strategy wise, especially from VC funding. Obviously, we'll see some cycles that will hit, and you're going to see kind of that approach of 1 in 10. If you're an angel investor, I've done this many times where I'm expecting 80, 90% of the companies I put money into to go to zero. And that
Yep.
1 or 2 that are the unicorns that really make up for all of your errors in that world, those are still doable. But I'm just kind of curious because of the flood of what we're seeing in blockchain, because I think there's there's a lot more mistakes that are being made in blockchain
Yes.
than there are wins, and only a
Yes.
handful of companies are truly going to break out of this. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. You guys did something that I thought was brilliant, Ben, and that was you made a media play. And I was looking at your piece here where you guys did the acquisition on My Media, digital brand, rebrands into RFOX Media. Talk to me about why you did this, because this was something, in my opinion, a lot of companies and projects, they don't get this, the understanding of being able to kind of bridge that gap to media.
Yep.
And
Yep.
especially as what you guys are doing in terms of bringing all the new NFT projects on, new gameplay projects coming down the pipe. What was your strategy here?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a great question, and I think the thing is that you realise that we've always been of the school of thought: don't do too much marketing. For example, use a restaurant analogy: don't start inviting people in before you've got a kitchen and chefs. Make sure that you've got products and services. But the thing is that you're forever trying to work out how to do that. Every influencer that you deal with, you're taking a punt, just like a VC does in an investment. So it's a very big risk that you take in this space. It's still the wild, wild west. And we turned around and stated the fastest way for us to sort of get traction, leverage off of media, and to have established audiences is to acquire a media company. With that, we also get the experience that those people have on building those platforms and building those bases. They've got a 13 million base. So we plug straight into a ready-made audience. Now, I think the clever play in our mind from the Myanmar perspective, Myanmar has been very isolated from the rest of the world, even didn't have proper translation tools until 2 or 3 years ago. So as we expand across the rest of the Southeast Asian region, Myanmar becomes like an A/B testing ground for us as well, because we can go in there. A lot of the releases, media, and circulation there doesn't make, and we've got a very good chance to be able to trial new things and to trial it with a mass audience as well. So we're leveraging off of the benefit of the experience that the team have. We've brought them across, and they're actually rolling that out across the rest of the Southeast Asian region. They're using that contract base that they have. They deal with Samsung, Lenovo, Grab, lots of, and as a result of that, they've got the experience, they've got the contracts, they've got the contacts, and they've got the audience. So it's just a straight plug in and we're away. So we rebadged just recently, and now we're going to start launching RFOX Media across the whole region.
Very cool. I noticed the tweet you guys did with appointed Maria Rodriguez Java as the general manager for RFOX Media, so 24-year veteran. So again, this to me was just a gangster move on RedFox's part of really pulling one on the media industry, because I think this is the challenge that we will see, especially in blockchain, because this separation between what's happening in projects and what's going to happen in terms of awareness. Because remember, everybody knows that's watching this show, we are at like 1 or 2% adoption rate right now. When we get to that, triple X adoption at 30% or above, it's literally going to be an explosion around who's going to be demanding the most attention. So anybody that's played or in a position from a media standpoint, they're going to kill it. They're going to kill it. So kudos to you guys.
You've made the point well, and you made it. Thank you. And you made the point well earlier as well. We always start with the end in mind. We're always thinking about 3 steps ahead. Where's the market going, not where it is now. We say if the market's a long road, we want to be at the end of that road with a lemonade stand ready to be able to quench people's thirst after the long walk. And I think the most important thing is if you're building for today in the blockchain space, then you're misguided, because you're building to capitalize on current gains or profits or bumps or whatever. Whereas we think you can sort of not take your eye off of that prize, and you can also best of both worlds. But that's why we started building the metaverse and the gaming side of things years ago, because we know that the e-commerce and something else that we haven't really talked about yet will be the next 2 monster plays. And where if you have a look at what we're doing, what we're acquiring, what we're building, and we're going to do a few more acquisitions, it doesn't take much to sort of piece together exactly where we're going, but we're not going to be very vocal about that. But ultimately, it's pretty obvious where we think this is going next, and we want to make sure that we're the first there.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about that in the sense of what you think, the metaverse, it's literally it feels like it's 2 months old now, when you think about,
Yeah.
the bomb that was dropped by Meta into the space of really creating kind of just the news organizations around the world trying to figure out what the heck is Meta and what does the metaverse consist of today. When you look at the strategies that you guys are going to have to take to really kind of move forward, what are some of the key pinnings that you're looking to right now for long-term growth for RedFox?
Ultimately, I think, honestly speaking, and especially in this area, it's about the tools and about the opportunities that you unlock for the people that are going to be using your platform. So it's about the interoperability. If you're going for these types of closed systems, it's not going to work because the whole idea of Metaverse is to be interoperable. So the thing is that we really want to build these plugins, and we want to be able to actually, we talk about digital inclusion all the time, but it's not just something that we say. What we want to do is COVID, you look at Charles Duhigg and behavioral patterns and 3 months in a routine, people don't want to go back to work, even if the world does open up, the majority of them. So the thing is that what we want to do is opportunities for these people that are extremely talented, that have limited opportunities to be able to plug into a greater, wider system and to be able to capitalize. And what we talk about it, we term it grey market, but we're talking about the Facebook businesses and the little mums and pops type stores. They lost their retail in COVID. They couldn't afford to pay them the rent. They couldn't keep the stores open. What we can do is provide a platform for these people to be able to plug in. And if you give people voice, an audience, and a platform that allows them to showcase their talents, I think that's an extremely potent mix. So we're very much about let's give people the opportunity to use this technology in ways that, a lot of people putting their heads together will come up with a lot more clever ideas than a group of us sitting around and working out where things are going. And like you said, we're 2 months into this phase. No one knows what it's going to look like in 3 or 4 years. But we know that if we unlock the potential for people to be able to build using these types of tools and systems, that it'll be a lot better than it will be if some grey-haired men in suits sit around and try and tell you how it has to be.
Yeah, exactly, right. I like that. Last question I have for you, Ben, is the Icon partnership that you guys just tied in with ICX. Talk to me about what this means to RedFox, how this is going to, I know they're coming on as pretty much a staple for the project. How does this work out for the two companies, and what is it going to look like?
Yeah, we've got a few monster partners about to come on very, very shortly, and this is the first. And I think the thing is that you'll see that we're very strategic again in who we choose to work with. Interoperability is something that they've sort of made a cornerstone. They've done very well in the DeFi space, and they also have the Bridge Transmission Protocol system, the BTP, which will allow us to be able to get onto more chains more quickly, leverage off of their ability to be able to leverage some of that DeFi knowledge as well. We've already got obviously a finance arm and staking and farming pools, but this will just allow more places and do more things. And while they're focusing on what they're really good at, we can help them with what we're focused on and bring them into the metaverse space. And I think it's just a marriage of convenience, and it's going to be an extremely fruitful partnership for both sides. But we've got a saying internally in our company. We always say, take a baker into the baker's rooms and mechanics into the mechanics rooms, and never should the two sides meet. And we really want to sort of focus on what we're good at, and we want to basically partner with people who are a lot better at the things that we're not, and that can help us to grow a lot quicker. And that's the fastest way for us to be successful, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I like the tie-in with RedFox VALT. I think that, obviously it's perfect for ICX and just that. But I was looking at some of this from the article on the blockchain transmission protocol. Icon users will be able to move assets with Icon and partner blockchains, including Moonriver, Near, Binance, Polka, and Akala. So I see this kind of painting together what could become pretty strategic for you guys. Very, as you said right here in this article, a progressive blockchain really kind of proving itself. That was a good move on your part. You said you had some other projects. Anything you can talk about today on the show? You want to break anything here today?
I think it's all I can say is that we're dealing with a combination of blockchain and outside parties, and that's going to become more relevant over the next couple of weeks. But I think you're going to see us do exactly what we're talking about now. We're going to leverage off of the blockchain knowledge and experience and bring in some of the very big players in that space. But then we're also going to bring in some of the massive retail giants straight away as well. And we're going to get those guys working together pretty much straight away.
Yeah, I like it. Ben, sounds like you guys got some pretty cool strategies happening for sure. And we definitely want to have you back on the show because I have a feeling there's big news coming for RedFox. And
yes,
we want to be part of that. When you guys are ready to roll that out, just definitely let us know.
Absolutely.
We'll get you back on.
Yeah,
all right, it was great having you on the show.
Time.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks so much for taking some time and stopping in on the show today. We appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Have a good day.
All right, so you guys are tuned in over on the podcast right now. I know a ton of this, good combos like this with CEOs, especially building on the metaverse, the blockchain industry as a whole, are what you're here for. And that's great. We love the fact that you're on the podcast side, but guess what? You're going to get a chance to dive into a lot more here on the YouTube channel, which is just jumping over, search Paul Barron Network, you'll find us. Make sure, and also while you get in on the YouTube channel, you'll find links over to the Diamond Circle, which is our exclusive member-only group that we drop not only analysis, token analysis, but also a lot of our own research on projects like RedFox Labs, where we'll drop information that's only available to that membership. It's absolutely free for you guys to do. And guess what? The big bonus is occasionally we'll drop tokens back to you guys. And in fact, we're going to be doing one for our big 200K party very soon. So stay tuned on the live show because that's when we're going to be doing our giveaways on the Diamond Circle. If you guys have an idea for the show, drop it in the comments below, or you can hit me up on Twitter @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.